Jay Baba. We're here with Arsenio, who has an interesting question here. This is now July
What?
uh, 21st.
Yeah,
Yeah, 21st. So Jay Baba, Arsenio, you were just saying, you were musing. What is your question?
I was just basically saying, these things that come to mind is why it is. I don't have any kind of uh, explanation of why somebody like me got caught up in this Meher Baba network. I'm not, of course, once you are embedded in the constructs in what Meher Baba says, we know that everybody, even cockroaches, are part and parcel of this beingness that we are. But what I am saying is that, I mean, I've met in my life so many people that are more consequential than I thought I was in terms of their spiritual longing, in terms of their correct behavior and stuff like that. That I always am surprised why I ended up being gifted this association with this being, uh, which I personally, even now, do not understand and I never understood. And so when you ask me to tell you a story about my very few contacts that I had with these people, that when I went to first to meet them, the Mandali, in 1974, I already had been aware of Meher Baba for 4 years. And I had ideas about these people, I, that they were like Gandalf from the from from the story of the Lord of the Rings, dressed in white with white beards. I never thought that the Mandali would be just like my aunts and uncles that I have not seen in a long time. They were the most natural, simple, honest, and different people that I've ever met in my life. And so my stories with them did not come. I was very shy. Uh, I was not a very. I, I was not a collector of people. I've never been. I met them. I recognized the specialness. I don't know what to describe it. And I was in awe, and I was shy, and I would sit back. I didn't want to have a conversation with them, monopolize them, possess them, whatever it is. I mean, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to look at them, to see them. And for me, the stories that I would share with you, some of them I might already have. I don't know, because my memory, now this time I just finally made a list. I start with one which is strange because it only happened in this part of the world. As you remember, Aloha visited the United States uh, I can't remember the year, but it must have been in the 90s, in the 90s, 96, probably 95, I can't remember the date. And one of the places that he decided to visit, and we were very happy, was Mexico City. At that time, I was living in Mexico City. So Alova arrived in Mexico City, and he was being escorted. I mean, I have met Alova in Mandali Hall in Merasad in 1974. And he was somebody that I found exciting because he was so out of this world. Uh, I mean, he was not somebody that you would think that would travel the world and spread this message. He was not a, I don't know how to explain. He was not Adi. He was not Eruch. He was not Ani. He was just Aloha. And Aloha was like a child. So he arrived in Mexico City, but guess who was the escort of Aloha when he landed in Mexico City? Tony Gris. I don't know if you know Tony Gris.
Yeah, I do know, Tony.
Yeah. So I also met Tony in India many times. And when I saw him and Aloha together, I just said, oh, Baba, this must be, I mean, I don't know what it was. So I understand that Aloha was told by Manny, and I understand it because Aloha himself told us that Manny told him a list of things that he should not do. But he said finally that he was not going to follow that list. And like, for example, when talking about Baba, and some of his theories of wars that were going to happen in the and things like that. He would sometimes roll on the floor. He rolled on the floor. He did all of those things. But the most amazing thing that happened with Aloha in Mexico, there were two of those, which they really blew my mind. My friend, you might know him also, a very good friend, Rafael Villafañe, who is like at this moment, it's the point for all of the Mexican lovers of Baba. That's where they meet. It's always been like that. But Rafael uh, uh, had a good friend, and who was not a lover of Meher Baba, but who was a good friend of Rafael, and meet. He wanted him to meet Aloha. So he went with Aloha and Tony to meet Aloha at the apartment of this man, to meet this gentleman, can't remember his name. And if I remember, I would not say because of the nature of the story. And so they came to this very fancy apartment. It was a man with very good resources. And they knocked at the apartment, and the man opened the door, and there was Aloha, Rafael, and Tony, and he was expecting them. They had been agreed. Uh, Aloha was standing on the back, all of a sudden moved to the front before anybody else said anything except, hi. He just went to the front and he pointed this finger at the gentleman and he said, the next time you do anything aggressive to your wife, that you hit your wife, you are going to be sorry about it. Don't ever do that again. Now, the man was startled. He started tears came to his eyes. He didn't know what to say. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what happened there. So they all walked in, and Aloha asked him whether he had some music, and he played some music. And Aloha started doing some like uh, Sufi dancing, but I don't know what it was. I'm being told this by Rafa. And all of a sudden, Aloha approached the man who had this pen in his pocket. Probably was a Mont Blanc or one of those fancy pens because he's a man with lots of money. And he took the pen out, and first of all, he said, "There's no Baba picture in this house." And then he took the pen out and he went and he made a big X, and he said, "This is where you have to put your photograph." And they left. This is Aloha. But the second story, which relates to the thing that happened in Mexico, is that Tony Gris, of course, Tony is Tony, was this escort of Aloha. Aloha was an Iranian citizen. These are the times of the Iran Contra thing. These are the times of Ronald Reagan. These are the times that there was not a very good relationship with Iran and the United States, well, like today. And one thing that Tony discovered is that before he came to Mexico, I'm looking at the passport of Aloha, was that Aloha had a one-entry visa to the United States. And he had all sorts of commitments back in the US. They were planning to go from Mexico back to the US for meetings everywhere. And there was no possibility because he had no visa. So they had to go to the US Embassy in Mexico City. Now, this is an Iranian man in those times, not living in Iran, living in India, and now in Mexico, which is, from the point of view of international visas, is an impossible situation. Going to the embassy, asking for a visa to go back to the United States. The consul looked at Rafael, who was sort of like the man who was there mediating, and he said, "This is something I cannot do anything about this. It has to go to the Department of State, and it's impossible. I guess the best thing that you can do is let him stay here, and then from here go to India, because there's no way that he can go back to the States." And Rafael, they didn't know what to do. So they're walking out of the office. And then the man says, "Well, but we need to still do the interview for the sake of the protocol. So why don't you bring him tomorrow and we will interview him? And then we will send this to the Department of State, but I am sure that nothing is going to happen." So they did go next day. And Alva brought some papers with him, including passport and all sorts of things. And amongst the things that he brought was some pictures of him with Baba and the rest of the Mandali and the rest. Well, because the man, when he's been interviewing Alova, he says to him, "So what would you do? What is your occupation? Or what was your occupation?" And he said, "I'm a Mandali." And then, of course, the US consul looked at him, looked at Rafael, and he said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" And then he took out the photograph, put it in front of the consul and said, "This God, this is me. I'm a Mandali. This is the avatar, this is me. I'm a Mandali. That's my profession." Now the consul looked at Rafael and opened his eyes like saying, "Oh, this is even worse than before. This man is totally way out." The thing is that, as he said, he told Rafael, Tony and Alova left first, and he then consul called Rafael and said to him, "This is not going to happen. So you better do the arrangements to send him back to India. This is never going to happen." Because of the fact alone that he is in another country and that this is Iran and that he lives in India, but also because he is obviously not in his right mind. So this is not a good thing to do. So, but as they were walking out, Rafael tells me that Alova says to him, "What time is it?" And Rafael says, "It's 3 o'clock." And Alova looks at Rafael and he says to him, "Tomorrow, by 3 o'clock, Visa will be here." And so they are going down. It's a big building. They changed now. Big building, the U.S. Embassy in Mexico. And they were going down, and they were now at the gate where the security was. And the security gets a phone call, and they stop Rafael and Alova, and they ask Rafael to talk to the consul. The consul wants to talk to you, and he talks to Rafael, and he said, "They are not going to believe this. I just sent the fax to say, could you please come tomorrow at 3? Because he's going to get his visa." And when Rafael went there next day with Alba to get the visa, after they left, he got the visa at 3 o'clock. The man said, "You know what I don't understand?" Said the consul to Rafael. I also received yesterday a fax that I am being transferred to New Delhi.
Oh.
So, I mean, I don't know what the meaning of this is. Certainly don't know. But the presence, and there are many other stories which I have forgotten, of the presence of Alova in Mexico. But to have Alova in Mexico City was an extraordinary thing, because you realize that it was not so much what he said. It has nothing to do with the mental constructs. It has to do with the presence that he communicates and the essence of who he was. So it was not that he was talking about the discourses of what Baba meant by this or what Baba meant by that. Alova was being the same Alova that we all have met in Mandali Hall. Kind of kooky, doing things that nobody understood what he was doing. But he was being so pure in his love for Baba that whatever happened there, it was just like a cable of communication. So the man that was scolded because he was beating his wife, Visa, and some other things that happened were all sort of like coming out from him, but not an intellectually understandable way. He was just like a flower emanating fragrance or something like that. So that's the story of Alova in Mexico City, one of the stories that I remember. So,
I have some friends. Maybe you know them, the Ajangs in LA. Mahmoud and Nasreen Ajang, the Ajang family in Los Angeles, Iranian Persian.
no.
Well, the same thing happened to them with Alaba. Alaba came to their house, looked a living room, first time, looked around, and said, "Where's the Baba picture? Where, and then he climbed up on the couch and he hammered a nail on the wall. And said, here, it's still there. It's still there. The Nasreen shows it's still.
Thing was like he was so spontaneous and so uncontrollable. But this is the man that when Baba was in his body, he had to tell somebody, "Could you please, grab this person because he's going to start jumping at me." So and in a way, some of that is always. I remember him in Mandali Hall. He's twitches, you think, going to his room and talking to him about crazy things that I never understood, but that he was saying into so many purposes about, his prophecies, the end of the world, the wars, things. I mean, but the one only thing that came from him, which I felt and everybody felt, was his love for God.
Mm.
It was totally unadulterated and totally pure. And in that sense, it was the same with all of these people. I mean, I don't know. I have one other story that I want to tell you, which I don't know if I did, because I don't know. I became a good friend, and this one I did uh, establish a relationship with him, with Jimmy Mystery.
Mm.
Mystery, mm, who ended up living in Mehrabad after some time, although he was from Bombay. He was the husband of Rhoda. Uh, and I always loved to play chess, and he was a chess player. So I found out about that. And so every time I went to India, which was, as I told you before, frequently because of my work, I used to play chess with him. And we used to play in the porch in that little house that he had behind Meherabad, you know, behind the main building of Meherabad, the other little house. That's where he was living. And it was a wonderful thing because we would play chess there. And in the meantime, Rhoda will give us some tea, and she made beautiful tea. But so I loved him very much. So it happened that in one of my trips to India, Jimmy died, and they were going to cremate him, and they were also having in Mandali Hall, Mehrabad Mandali Hall, they were having his wake on one evening, and I was there. Was my first or second day because I always went for 3 days. So I was there. I was feeling very sorry about it, and I was looking at him, you know, in state, and Rhoda and all the family uh, around him. And I was sitting in one of those green benches that are on the wall of Meher Bad Mandali Hall, just in front of where Baba used to sit. And all of a sudden, Erush walks in and he goes and pays his respects, gives a hug to Rhoda, and then he sits beside me. And I am feeling kind of very sad. I don't know why. I just came in and I was bumped into this news. I was coming with the hope of playing a game of chess with Jimmy. And so Erich told me, and this started like that, like this. Erich says to me, Arsenio, I was in Pune when my father died. I mean, and the way I found about this is that there was a telegram that came for Baba. And of course, they gave the telegram to me. So I gave the telegram to Baba. So Baba opened the telegram and he read it and he passed it to me like that. Just said, pass it to me. And he said, your father died. And I looked at him, this is Erush. And he said, Baba told him, what are you going to do about it? And Erush said, I'm here with you. And Baba should be said like that. And said, okay. So after 10 minutes or 15 minutes, Baba said to him, I want to go for a ride in town. So Erush took the car. They were in, I think in Guru Prasad. I don't know where they were. I think in Guru Prasad. So Baba took the car out and Baba sat in the front. I mean, Erush was driving. And this is what Erush was telling me. And then Baba was gesturing right, left, up. And it was going all over the place. I just didn't know where he was. Although he knew Pune well, he got lost after so many turns and turns and turns and turns. And so all of a sudden they make a turn and he realizes that they are in front of the house where his father was living then, staying. And right at the moment when Baba says stop, and he stops, and they are bringing out the body of the Papa Jesawala, and his father. And Baba tells him, what do you see? And I see they're bringing out my father's body. And then Erich told me that Baba said to him, do you weep when you pass a stool in the morning? And Erich said, no, of course not. Well, see, the body eats food. It takes out of the food all of the nutrients that it needs for its regeneration. And what it doesn't need, it throws out. The soul takes a body and uses the body in order to acquire all of the experiences that are necessary for its furthering spiritual evolution. And once all of those nutrients are taken out, the soul disposes of the body, just like you dispose of your stool. And Erich looked at him, and then he said to Erich, go down and wait here and pay respect to the body of your father. This is the story that Erich told me as I was sitting, looking at Jimmy Misty's body in state. I mean, I don't know what it means. It had a lot of meaning to me then because it sort of took my angst, my, pain, whatever, losing a friend. But he told me that so spontaneously and out of the blue that I don't know. I still don't know what he wanted to convey to me. But I mean, that was what he said. So I also remember what I might have told you, but I don't know, that in one of these many trips to one of the Mandali that I was particularly, I felt something about her. And felt about all of them, but that was some, I mean, she looked so Latin. She looked like my people, my sister, my aunties in Puerto Rico. I cannot explain to you. Was Arnabas. Arnabas, who, first of all, she had one of the most beautiful smiles that I have ever seen in a woman. She had a smile that went like that, it was a beautiful smile. And when she smiled, and then at the moment she smiled, I remember that smile, her eyes were very dark and then she had beautiful eyes. This is what I saw, like little stars going like that. So I thought to me, myself, in my imagination, in my fantasy, she was some sort of mythical character, that I just met there. So I can't remember when this is. There are two instances in which I have a particular close moment with Arnavas. One is when I'm one of those 3 days that I go there or four, I decide to skip the functions, meaning the Mandali Hall and the Mera's porch, and I walk alone to Seclusion Hill. And I walk to Seclusion Hill and I stay there for, I don't know, one couple of hours. I am spaced out. I'm really spaced out. I mean, I don't know what, I was like, phew. I mean, it was like gone, like when I used to do some of those things that I don't want to mention. I was gone. I was gone. And so I came down because I knew that it was going to be time. At that time, people would leave Merasa at, at dusk. So it was already 5 or something. So I started to move down. I walked down. And when I walked in, there were still people singing in Mera's porch. The Mandali Hall was full. The door was closed. So maybe they were having a talk or a film. I don't know. So I didn't want to bother any of those things. I was too spaced out anyhow. So I went to have a glass of water. When I went to get the glass of water, it so happened that on the last bench that was there in Mandali Hall that was different from the other benches because it was sort of marble or concrete. I don't know what it was. And it was in front of where they used to have originally the dispensary, where Gore attended people right there. In the end, if you look from the blue bus to the end, at the other end, and Anna was there. And she saw me drinking my water and she beckoned. And I went there and I sat by the bench by her. Oh, and she smiled and I was, it was so spaced out that when she smiled, there I saw not stars, galaxies. I'm tired. I was gone. I was gone. And she said, "So how are you doing?" She said to me. And I said to her, in answer, I said to her, "Arnavas, why can't we stay like this all the time?" And she smiled. Oh my God. She smiled. And she put her arm in my knee like that. She tapped my knee. And she said, "Yes, Arsenio," she said, "but if we stayed like that all the time, who's going to do the work? Who's going to do the work?" And I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was talking about my work and whatever I was doing in my work. But I thought later on, I realized that she was talking about the work of living, which is the work of loving, which is the work of making mistakes, forgiving, growing, and discovering love. This is what I felt. Later, not there. There, I was just taken aback by her comment. I last saw Arnavas on her deathbed. She was in one of those rooms in front of Mera, Baba's house. And she was bedridden. And Anne Moraine, who was one of the resident doctors there then, and she was a good friend because I met her in Geneva. She said to me, "Do you want to say hello to Arnavas?" And I said, "Of course." She was bedridden, and I thought that.
Arsenio, you just muted yourself somehow. You got to unmute. You're okay. Okay.
It was sort of like we walked tiptoed to her side. I was in awe because she was so sitting so peacefully in her bed, and still her face had those features that I love. And then, as I was looking at her, I'm just basically going to turn around, she just opened her eyes and smiled, and opened her eyes and smiled. And she extended her hand with kind of a effortless effort. I don't know how to describe that. And she touched my hand and she said to me, Arsenio, how are you feeling? And and I felt like, well, this is incredible. I am supposed to do that. I mean, and then she looked into my eyes, Betty. She looked so deep into my eyes. She looks so deep into me that I have never looked like that into myself. Whatever she was doing, I don't know. And she smiled and she said, Jai Baba, and I gave her a kiss. But I never forget that look. I don't know what happened. I don't understand what she communicated or wanted to communicate with me. But I never forget that smile and those eyes full of stars. So that's a story with Arnavas. Now,
That's a beautiful story. Yeah. She was a beauty. Yeah.
and I don't know, you see, uh, I think I mentioned one story, but you have to tell me. Uh, no, this one, what I'm telling you, I have not yet told you. I know that because I just remembered the other day. Mansari, what's another like Arnavas, that she was not in the mainstream. I mean, if in terms of the personality, I mean, Manny and Mera, I mean, those people were boom. I mean, they were. But Mansari was somebody that I always felt very attracted to her for some reason. Because I think I told you the first time that I went to India, uh, I went inside the tomb. It was at 6 in the morning. I went with a friend of mine that had been there before. So he bowed down. I didn't know what to do. So I sat down, squatted in the tomb, inside of the tomb. I was feeling a lot. I was in awe. I already was uh, knew who Baba was and felt Baba, but I didn't know about the traditions of the bowing down. No, I didn't know anything about that. So, but I am sitting there in awe at the tomb inside. Actually, when we went in, Mansari, who was at that moment taking the flowers and the clothes from the day before to bring some fresh clothes, that early it was. And she said well, not to me, she never met him, but to my friend who she had met, could you please take care of the place, make sure stay here until I come back? I have to, otherwise I have to close. But I mean, so she went and we stayed there by ourselves. I just squatted down and I was thinking in my mind, I feeling Baba, and I was saying, let me do something for you. Let me do some service for you. Let me do something for you. What can I do? That's what I was saying. Of course, I felt it was going to be something important because hey, it was me. And me is always important. This me is always important. So as I was sitting there in my eyes closed, doing this profound meditation about what, waiting for Baba to tell me, go to the Himalayas and or whatever powerful command, all of a sudden I hear this little voice and I open my eyes. And although I was squatting, she was looking into my eyes, that little woman, Mansari. And she said exactly like that. Do you want to do something? I was perplexed because this is what I was thinking. And she said, and then she gave me a small, like, you call that broom, little broom. She said, could you brush the corners of the tomb for me? So that day I became my study became one of my favorite people. And I remember going there so many times. The first place I would go when I went to India was the tomb. First thing was to go to the Samadhi. And most of the time, except for some afternoon moments that I would walk in, Mansari was there. And she was always sitting on that green bench that was on the shed, on the, last part, close to where the file cabinet was. She was always sitting there. So one day, because we were alone there, I said to her, I've read that, perfect masters and saintly people, they always sit on the same place. And you always sit here. And she said to me, I sit here because these Baba lovers that come from America and Europe and these places, they put their fancy cameras and their wallets and their things on that bench outside where they leave the shoes. There are people in Arangown, that would make a fortune with that. They take it so I'm just watching these people. This is why I sit here. Now, one day, I come in one of my trips, and now Mansari, this is in the later days, instead of sitting in the place that she had sat for years, she's now sitting on the pandal, looking at the tomb, the big pandal in front of the tomb. And I go and I say to her, Mansari, you changed your seat. This must have some spiritual meaning. Why are you sitting here? I said, listen, the problem is that I have grown old. And now my hearing is not good. So I talk louder because I don't hear. And there are some people, she didn't mention who think that this is a place that you have to be quiet because as if somebody had died here. She said, but the truth is that nobody has died here. On the contrary, this is where life begins. And I remember because Mansari would be the one that when I would be inside the tomb, solemnly carrying out my job of cleaning the tomb, which I love to do every time I went there very early, she would walk in and she said, do you know this joke? And she would crack a joke inside the tomb to me, and we would both laugh. So, so she was a very special lady. Did you meet her?
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
She was an amazing lady.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was an amazing lady. I still remember being in the having tea with her in her kitchen uh, with some American girls and I don't know, probably people from Geneva also. And then it was kind of the time that you have tea at 3 o'clock. And there was a mouse walking in the kitchen like that. But she was having it. So one of the ladies said, there's a mouse, there's a mouse. Mansari. And she looked at her and she said, Baba's mouse. He said, "Baba's mouse." Her, she was really, really one of the people that I felt was and when the women would come, she would put on her fancy sari, and she was she was a very special lady also. So knowledgeable, although she was a prisoner,
Mm-hmm.
but she knew everybody. She had stories from everywhere. I mean, people loved her, and she was so tiny. She said as she would grow older, she was becoming tinier. She says, one day you're going to come and you're going to be able to take me in your pocket. That was, I don't know, I mean, uh, those were moments of my life that were so significant. I'm so grateful to you that you give me a moment to remember them. And because in doing so, although I don't have the slightest idea uh, why these opportunities were given to me, but it did balance my otherwise very earthly behavior to meet these people. And the last story I will tell you, because I know it's already 7:48, is about this man from Mexico, uh, whose name was Francisco. Uh, I met him in Geneva. He was sort of like the deputy director of the office that I worked for. So he was my senior, but he was Mexican. I was from Puerto Rico. We both spoke Spanish. So we became friends, and he would, I would have always in my office the Don't Worry Be Happy poster that I had in Miami since 1970 when I found out of Baba. I put it in a one of those wooden plastic things, and I put it always in my office. And so there was, hi, Alan. So there was the it was like that. And he would invite me for coffee time, to the cafeteria at the UN building that we were working in. And he would say to me, yeah, come, Arsenio, let's go for a coffee. And he said to me, bring your friend, bring your friend too. In a kind of a jokeful manner, not disrespectful, but like putting myself in a situation. And I would answer to him in kind. I would say to him, of course, he always comes with us anyhow. So, oh, but one day there was a special moment because he came to me and he said, listen, the Russians are, because this is the UN, are sponsoring a meeting in Goa of 2 weeks, a 2 week meeting in Goa. And I want you to go with me. Is to do some training for people from East Asia, and they're paying everything, tickets and everything. So I said, sure, sure. And then there was a weekend in between because it was 2 weeks. So he asked me later, we're having coffee, of course, and he said to me, "What are you going to do on the weekend that we have free?" And I said, I'm go to Ahmednagar, to visit my friends. And he said, "Can I come with you?" And I said, "Well, Francisco, he was you know, at that time, not married, kind of a bon vivant, you know, with the ladies and the things." And I said, "Look, I mean, there's nothing in Ahmednagar that you would like. I mean, you should go to Bombay or Delhi or places like that to see important things in India. But I'm just going there. It's a very dusty town. There's nothing to do. It's just because I have these old-time friends there that I want to visit." So he said to me, "So you don't want me to go with you?" "Yeah, but I don't want to go with you." I mean, he was my boss, so I don't care. I mean, so finally he ended up, when he's intellectual, this part of the so-called Latin American intelligentsia, and he flew with me. We went there, and then we go to Amendagar. And I said, of course, when he meets Eruch, and I felt in my mind I was fantasizing. So I go and first thing that we met when we go to the Pilgrim Center is Tius.
Oh,
Now Tius approaches the car, not to my side. I've known Tius for some time. He approaches the car to the Francisco side, and he says to him, "Did you bring a soap for Muhammad? Because Muhammad now is getting soaps. He loves soaps. Did you bring a soap for Muhammad?" So Francisco is a deep intellectual, and he looks at me, and I said, "No, no, no." So we were going to be there 2 days. Next day, when we go to Mandali, and we go in Mandali Hall, and every time I've been in India, every time, without fault, that I go there with a new person, Erich stands up and welcomes the person. He says, "Oh, you're new here?" Blah, 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 blah. I walk in with this new guy. He was a very prominent guy, a lot of personality and a big beard. And so, I mean, he walks in and Erich keeps on talking. So I say to in my mind, I am sending telepathic messages to Erich. "Please do something." So, and Francisco is sitting just in front of Erich. And so Francisco says to him, no, Erich, finally, he says to Francisco, "Oh, and you're new here." And he says, "Yes, yes." He says, um, 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 uh, "So what are you here?" "Well, I came because of Arsenio." I mean, "Yeah, Arsenio, we know. We have gone here many times. What do you want?" Like that. Erich is talking like that. He said, "No, I want to know more, find out who is my Baba." "Well, Baba," Erich says, "My Baba, he used to sit there." I never heard this before. He used to sit there. That's his chair. But, but sometimes he would sit in a potty chair here. Right here, we would put his potty chair and he would sit there. And we were tending to him. And all of a sudden, he's telling this to this man who is the first time in India. And a couple would come in, and Baba would gesture to me, "Go and see who it is." And I went out, and there were some people that wanted to see him. And I came in and I said, "Baba, these are these people that want to discuss." So I told them to wait until you finish. Why? Let them come in. So in comes, I've never heard that story before. So then come the people, and this is what he's telling this man, this intellectual guy from Mexico, uh, uh, Harvard guy. And I said, "Wow, never heard that before." And so just to cut the story, because I know this is a few minutes. Then he goes out and because Francisco doesn't like that, he goes out and he's now sees that this is the daughter of Bill LaPage. I can't remember Jenny. I can remember her name. She was a beautiful girl. In fact, she was young. This is back in time. She was a young girl, beautiful girl. She was sitting in the bench. He sits there, of course, girl. Wow, beautiful garden. But so he says to her, she says to him, is this your first time in India? He says to her, yes. And he answers, is this your first time to India? No, Baba stayed at my house in Australia. Ah, okay. And then she says to him, have you been to Baba's room? And he says, an opportunity. No. Can I take you to Baba's room? He says, yes. So she goes in, and as a gentleman, in the Latin American style, he wants to let her in. He says, go in. He says, no, no, I've been there many times. You go in. You have better to go in by yourself. So he goes in, and he's there. And when he's there, something happened to him that
Oh,
that he all of a sudden there's a big commotion because somebody comes from the Mary's in the porch, and I think one of the girls, I can't remember her name, but one of the girls that helps Mera goes to the room, and she sees this man walking like a dog around the room and smelling everything. And he tells me afterwards that he was smelling uh, roses and fragrance, and he smelled the roses. It were not the roses. He said to me, "My nose is a very important thing in my life. I mean, fragrances are very important to me." And he said, "There's a fragrance here that I have never recognized." So he went in, and so I know I am rushing this story.
all right. Take a minute or two. It's all right. Go. It's all right. We'll see.
So the thing is that he's telling me this story because I am saying goodbye to Mera. This is the time that I'm leaving. So he's telling me this story, and I said later. We say goodbye to Mera in the car going to Samadhi. He finishes his story and he says that the smell, and it was an incredible thing because I actually felt this fragrance. I don't know what it was his feeling. But the thing is that the first time that he had gone up to the Samadhi, he stayed outside, and Mansari was there, and and I said to her, he's not a Baba lover. He's just here to accompany me. And Mansari, she pointed at her wrist and she said, he has an appointment. So that second day after that experience, he only was there 2 days, he went in and Mansari's there again, and he just went in and he doesn't bow down. He just goes flats down in front of the tomb. And Mansari looks at me and he says, yeah, he had an appointment. These things and the details, which I cannot tell now, he wrote in a letter. We went back to Goa, and he wrote a letter to Eruj. And Eruj read this letter in Mandali Hall, and that's how I found the details. But this man, who maybe some of you have met him, Francisco Sekeli, he has been there. He plays the accordion very beautiful. His parents were killed in the Holocaust. One
Oh,
of his parents was killed in the Holocaust, and it's a Jewish Mexican guy. And it's amazing how this happened in 2 days.
wow, what a story.
That's it.
Wh- Why was he crawling around? Looking for the smell or
He
just
was
out?
looking like a dog looking for the smell because he said, and then he said in the letter that he wrote to Erich, he said, at one point in moment, I said, I lost God when I was a child, when I was a young man, and today here I found God again.
Oh my.
So,
Oh, wow. That's
sorry it's taken so long.
wow.
And hello to all of the people that I'm seeing. Yeah,
Oh, wow. All right. I'm going to stop this recording. Arsenio, that was a wonderful, wonderful. Avatar, Meher Baba Ki Jai. Bless you for telling these stories. All right. Stop this.